serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is us. We're her problem. The only reason she has a problem is she doesn't want us here. And every time you look at yourself, be you black, brown, red, or yellow, a so-called Negro, you represent a person who poses such a serious problem for America because you're not wanted. Once you face this as a fact, then you can start plotting a course that will make you very intelligent instead of unintelligent. What you and I need to do is learn to forget our differences.
Forget our differences.
You don't catch hell because you're a bad.
See?
You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist or a Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Mason or an Elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're an American. But if you was an American, you wouldn't catch no hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell, all of us catch hell for the same reason. So we are all black people, so-called Negroes, second-class citizens, ex-slaves. You are nothing but an ex-slave. You don't like to be told that. But what else are you? You are ex-slave. You didn't come here on the Mayflower. You came here in a slave ship.
So they say.
Like a horse.
So he said, but right after that, he learned the truth, right? But he always speak that real knowledge. But we're gonna go into some stuff right now. Okay, so a lot going on right here. So okay, so this right here is so-called slave plantation, where my daddy get his last name from. Okay, where my third and fourth granddaddies going back to the 1700s get their last name from the European settler, right? So I've done the research on it. So the people, we'll get into it. We'll get into it right down here. That's the plantation. Okay. Up here. So one of my relatives was named after one of these people, right? One of the slave owners, right? So based upon that, I was able to get the information, right? So this place, the slave plantation, they put on the National Register of Historic Places, right? It was called Mount Prospect. That name in and of itself, it tells on itself. If you look up, if you read a lot into the first contacts of Europeans on these lands, they used the word prospect a lot when they just used that word to describe a lot of things back then. So it doesn't surprise me to see it as the name of a plantation, right? Mount Prospect is a two-story frame plantation house of late Georgian style. Although somewhat neglected in recent years, it is still in good condition. It stands amid the remains of what must have been an impressively laid out estate, which still includes a number of significant outbuildings, a family graveyard, many large trees and flowering shrubs, and the remains of boxwood and flower gardens and an orchard. The house stands in a grove of trees facing west. Arranged in its side here is a square. In a square are dependencies. To the south is a small office which is run down. It has a well-executed molded cornice and substantial brick chimney. To the east, rear of the office is a boxwood garden scattered with bulbs, and east of the garden is a small family vineyard or graveyard, including the grave of Exum Lewis. Exum Lewis, 1771. There was a lot of those. There was about 4 or 5 Exum Lewises. One of my relatives, indigenous American, was actually named after one of these Exums, right? But anyway, so it goes down. It's just talking about this house. Talks about says north of the graveyard and to the rear of the house, across an open yard, is a smokehouse of unusually large size, reportedly accommodating 10,000 pounds of meat. So they had a big ass smokehouse. Okay. All right. So down here is in the early 19th century. So my people was there from the 1700s. Says in the early 19th century, Lewis advertised brandy for sale, probably distilled from the products of this orchard. So, like I was saying, you come from a long line of alcoholic illiterates, 9 times out of the 10, they was fed that stuff early in the game. But we'll move on down here. As the 18th century plantation house is essentially okay. As the interior follows a Quaker plan. Okay, so they was Quakers. They just talking about the rooms and the layout of the inside of the house. And this right here says significance. Areas of significance. You got agriculture, architecture, education, landscape, religion. So that's all they had all that stuff. It says, okay, let's see. Mount Prospect is a handsome Georgian plantation house, its main block essentially unaltered despite additions to the rear. It was the home of Exum Lewis Jr., okay, an active and influential citizen of Edgecombe County. Now, all right, postmaster, storekeeper, mill owner, and planter. Planter, so you have fields. Mill owner, they was milling, okay. In 1815, Lewis played host at Mount Prospect to the noted Methodist pioneer Francis Asbury. Hey, Francis, he must have been from, Spain? In 1815, that was last year, the 1812, when the Indians fought. They fought a lot, about 15 or so tribes of Indians fought in the 1812 war. Okay, so says the large frame house for its Quaker plan and fine traditional finish inside and out stands in a pleasant setting amid a group of outbuildings, along with a family cemetery, boxwood garden, and an orchard. Okay, keep talking about that family cemetery, right? So this is the layout of the place. The dwelling, the driveway, the dairy, barn, smokehouse, the box garden, uh, cemetery. If people's leaving messages or comments and stuff right now, I can't see nothing. So I appreciate the comments though. Okay, so it says the cemetery. See the cemetery? I bet you that place is still right there right now. We'll go back. You see the orchard, the garden box garden thing right there. Okay. All right. So it says Exum Lewis Jr. was one of 9 children of Colonel Exum Lewis, a Revolutionary soldier. So this man, I looked him up. He was born in the 1730s in Virginia, made his way over to North Carolina to get his own land right around in the 50s or something, 1850s or 1750s. It says, although Colonel Lewis was himself a large landholder, his will, probated in August 1796, excluded his namesake from sharing in wealth of real estate. I don't get that, but anyway, Colonel Lewis's son, Green, was devised a 420-acre plantation, which included his father's home place. The remainder of the deed, the remainder of the dead soldier's land holdings was divided between his son Thomas and Bartholomew, with Exum Jr. receiving only money debts due to the estate and the stock in a trade of a store operated by the elder Lewis at the time of his death. In addition, the will provided that Exum Lewis Jr. should maintain the store as a going concern until his brother Edwin would attain the age of 20, at which time the accumulated earnings of the store were to be divided equally between them. Okay. Right. So it just goes into talking. It's just talking about this inheritance, right? It says Exum Lewis Jr. began acquiring large tracts of Edgecombe County. Now, this is one of my great uncles right here. See Edgecombe County right here. See, born in 1863. See, now Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st of 1863 that freed all the so-called slaves that were in rebellious states. North Carolina was a rebellious state. So it says he was born into slavery, and he was born after January 1st. He was born. So he was born, January 1st. Yeah, he was born into slavery. So showing that. Right. So says, oh man, he brought up all this. Okay, let's go keep it moving. Now, this is one I do want to read right here. It says, at the time of his father's death in 1796, Exum Lewis Jr. was 25 years old. He later married Ann Harrison of Virginia and became the father of 8 children. He apparently took an immediate and active interest in the store formerly owned by his father. At least as early as 1803, Lewis, in partnership with Horatio Gates Clinch, operated the store under the firm name of Lewis and Clinch. Lewis's brother Edwin, who was scheduled to receive 1/2 of the accumulated profits of the store upon reaching the age of 20, is said to have moved to Baldwin County, Alabama in 1803 and to have died there in 1819. Now, okay, so when I did my research, I have family from a couple of counties over in Alabama, uh, definitely before and after these dates right here of 1803 and 1819. Now, if you know that area, that's Choctaw area. So that Choctaw tribe's territory goes all the through where my family is from in Alabama, all the way uh, to Baldwin County, and is all down Baldwin County. All of Baldwin County is the tribe. So this man, who, okay, so I did the research, and the people, my people that was enslaved here in North Carolina in Edgecombe County, you can do the research. They were Tuscarora Indians that fought with settlers in the early 1700s, and it's said that the last of the Tuscaroras left North Carolina in the 1800s. Well, like I said, my people was here on this plantation in the 1700s, so they was from the tribe of Tuscarora right there, and they was captured and enslaved. Period. But right here, this man's son went down to an area where some more Indians was. Now you got to know the history of that. 1803 to 1819. So you had the War of 1812 that lasted to 1815. Then they start pushing down into Georgia and Florida. So they had some Creek Wars and some Seminole Wars right around that 1819 date. So they was warring down there. So 9 times out of 10 that the son there was down there trying to get his own land for himself too, right? All right, so we're gonna move on. Okay, it says in the midst of his other responsibilities, Lewis served as postmaster at Mount Prospect from 1819 to at least as late as 1831. He was also active in the manufacture and sale of brandy, the breeding of horses. So they're breeding horses too, and the sale of real estate. The census of 1820 reveals that Lewis's immediate household consisted of 14 persons. Okay, because he only had 8 kids, and it was him and his wife, so that's 10. So who was the other 4, right? And then my people was already there for sure, right? And before 1820. So the 1830 census credits him with the ownership of 42 slaves. Okay, 42 slaves in 1830. So, that's you got to think about those dates, what was going on, and how if they was having wars with the Creeks and the Cherokees in Tennessee and uh, Georgia and stuff. It was just a lot going on, but you can look right at this and just do your own math with other correlate other information you got with these numbers. It goes on to talk about they sold this and sold that. Yeah, and then this show you what the information is at Edgecombe County Records, Division of Archives and History. See? Deeds, wills, estate papers, etc. Yeah. So these right here, see how I tracked it? Did it? I showed you maps on a previous the map of the whole area right here. The White Oak Swamp. All this whole map of the whole area. So yeah. See, the man was a colonel, right? He was a colonel. He fought in a Revolutionary War, which was in 1775, right? So, okay. So,
These Negroes aren't asking for no nation. They're trying to crawl back on the plantation.
what do you say?
I'm not on the wall saying I'm going to love these folks no matter how much they hate me. No, you need a revolution. You ever heard of a revolution where they lock arms as Reverend Lee was out there singing, we shall overcome. Just tell me you don't do that in a revolution. You don't do any singing, you're too busy swinging. Based on land. A revolutionary wants land so he can set up
Based on land, he said.
an independent nation. These Negroes aren't asking for no nation. They're trying to crawl back on the plantation.
He said, crawl back on the plantation.
When you want a nation, that's called nationalism. When the white man became involved in a revolution in this country, what was it for? He wanted this land so he could set up another white nation. That's white nationalism. The American Revolution was white nationalism. The French Revolution was white nationalism. The Russian Revolution too, yes, it was white nationalism. You don't think so? Why you think Khrushchev and Mao can't get their heads together? White nationalism. All the revolutions that's going on in Asia and Africa today are based on what? Black nationalism. A revolutionary is a black nationalist. He wants a nation. I was reading some beautiful words by Reverend Clee pointing out why he couldn't get together with someone else here in the city. Because all of them were afraid of being identified with black nationalism. If you're afraid of black nationalism, you're afraid of revolution. And if you love revolution, you love black nationalism. To understand this, you have to go back to what young brother here referred to as the house Negro and the field Negro. Back during slavery. There was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house.
All right. So
they dressed pretty good.
That don't see the whole objective of placing all black folks on a slave plantation and all of that is not correct. See, you have to follow the timeline of the, of when certain places were inhabited by so many European settlers. And now, when it was more Indians in a particular area than there were settlers, all the settlers lived on what they called a fort. So you have fort this, and fort that, and they live on the forts, basically protected, right, by their militia, their colonels and stuff like that. So now they had plantations, starting in Massachusetts and Virginia and all that. They had plantations in them forts. They have a fort and they have some fields on it with some people working in them fields, right? Some darker people of a darker hue, right? That can resist that sun, that can actually go out there and live and comfortably under it. They had them go out and work in the field, but pretty much the whole scheme of telling us in these school books and keep on telling us about this slavery thing, telling all these late greats who said it to us in speeches and put it in our brains, so to keep furthering the lie, keep the deception going. That's all that is. But you do your own research and you'll find out that, like, they wasn't in Alabama like that. They had maybe a fort or two down there, one by that water and stuff. You just gotta search it out. So if they didn't have that, who else was in the land? It was the Indians, right? Those, what they calling black people, Negroes, those was the Indians, period. Samuel G. Morton said it, the cranium analysis added up to two different races. The Negroid type, whether it's tall, short, light skin, or dark skin, in any kind of degree or one degree or another of a Negro type, and then the Eskimo to the north. And I broke it down in the numbers and showed you how they started filtering them down up out that snow, right? Showing the Coast Chalet people how that was all made up. And at the school, they had two little black kids sitting there, so-called black kids, indigenous kids, Indians, the real Indians, sitting right there in the crowd. Then you got to think about that. Remember in Oregon, because that was in Washington. So in Oregon, the mounds had a bunch of skeletons with bullet holes in their head. Every time you look at what they about the mounds or say about the mounds, it's some ancient. They say ancient mysteries of the mounds. Blah, blah, blah. How goes and the remains in them, right? How did that happen? If they're that ancient and old and mysterious, how did they get bullets in their heads? Okay, gotta question this kind of thing because all the evidence lines up against all their lies. For one lie, there'll be so many other things that can knock that one lie down. So you just gotta look at stuff. All right, I'm gonna leave y'all with that. I don't want to be too long. Peace, peace. For sure.